Adobe is too expensive. Most business can save a shit ton by not using Adobe Suite. I 100% agree with you, mate. Actually, you can save up to 90% of your software expense, with not using Adobe software. And some companies pay like 10K a year just for using Adobe. That is very expensive. You know what's not expensive? This bumper. So Adobe have unmatched library of apps. If you're a photographer, videographer, web designer, UI or UX developer, whatever, Adobe has it all. Adobe has it all, bruv. Come on, you can't run from Adobe. Other companies doesn't have this library of software. It is like every creative jobs out there, Adobe have a software of it. You can't run from Adobe. That's why it is so hard to quit Adobe software. It is so hard not using Adobe software. Even if you're in school or in your college, you can't run from Adobe because some school or college is sponsored by Adobe. So if you're lucky enough student and your school is sponsored by Adobe, you get like 2 years Adobe All Apps license as long as you're a student in that school. That is very great. Man, imagine that if you're studying like video editing in your school or college, what kind of software would you buy when you graduate? It's Adobe. Adobe. Man, you can't run from Adobe. It is so hard to quit Adobe software, and it is so hard to quit Adobe ecosystem. So let me be honest with you guys. What is the best software to learn video editing? It is Adobe Premiere Pro because it's very easy to learn and like everybody's using it. Even they're not buy Adobe license. And maybe you too, not a license holder of Adobe Premiere but has Adobe Premiere in your computer. Way high and up she rises. I know, it's not okay, but some of us did that, right? But hey, it's for studying purpose. It's for learning. But eventually, you get your job, your editing job, and start making money. What software would you buy? It's Adobe. Adobe. Eventually, you will buy Adobe software because if you're one of the license holder of Adobe service, you get all the features that Adobe gave us when you have a license to your Adobe. Is making your days easier. You don't have to buy a certain font because Adobe will license it for you. You don't have to browse like many other stocks, videos, website because Adobe have their own Adobe stocks. It is very cool features and it is very intuitive. It will make your days easier, but still though, expensive. And all the feature that I said before, you can find it for free alternative out there, like Google Fonts, and alternative for Adobe stock is like Pexels, Unsplash, and they're all free and for commercial use. And let me ask you this, what is the best Photoshop alternative out there? There is no software better photoshopping photos than Photoshop. Even you're calling editing your photo is photoshopping. Man, it is on the language now. Even if you're searching for alternative out there like Krita, like Jim, Affinity Designer and whatever, they has to have PSD support because PSD, Photoshop document, is the industry standard for Photoshop document. Image manipulator, right? You can't run away from Adobe. Even if you're not using Adobe, you will have to use Adobe formats. If not, they're not compelling software to use. Even it's free. Eventually, you can't run from Adobe. I know Adobe is very expensive, and if you want to work fast, you eventually use Adobe software. So, change my mind. You can't run from Adobe software. If you can change my mind, leave your comment down below and I'll see you in the next one.